Thank you for joining us today. I'm John Casey. I'm with Fuel Digital, and we're thrilled to have you at today's webinar joining us. We are confident that you will enjoy the session and find it to be quite valuable. So thank you for your time today. A quick bit of housekeeping before we get started. Attendees are on mute currently, so if you have questions or comments, please put them in the chat section and we will get to them as time allows. Also, if anybody requires closed captioning, please let us know and we'll turn that feature on. In terms of our agenda today, what we're hoping to cover is we'll introduce you quickly to our to Fuel and then to our speakers, and then we will dive right into the webinar as we talk about ways to leverage your data and drive value from your data in Filevine. So with that, let's get moving. I'll hand it off to Chris Cook. Chris is one of our founders, and Chris will share a little bit about Fuel Digital and what we're all about. Chris?
Yep. Thanks, John. Hey, guys. Thanks for joining us today. Just a real quick 90-second blurb about Fuel Digital. So we are a full-service digital services consulting firm. We handle everything from digital and technology strategy through UX design, systems integration, and development. And we surround all of those areas of expertise with top-notch project management. In addition to some well-known clients like Ticketmaster and Pepsi and World Wildlife Fund, we have been a Filevine partner for almost 5 years now. It'll be 5 years this August. As far as Filevine goes, many of you probably know us from the QuickBooks integration, where I think we have close to 300 Filevine customers using the QuickBooks integration at this point. We've since developed dozens of other integrations, and you may or may not have heard of them. They include postage, integration with stamps.com and FedEx, integration with CopyTrack. We have a Dropbox and a SharePoint document sync utility, integrations with Soluno. We've got VoIP integrations with both RingCentral and newly created integration with Dialpad. And then also an integration with Microsoft Teams that we're just rolling out in beta right now. In addition to those integrations, we handle extensive automation work, and we actually developed the connector which allows Filevine to play in the Workato ecosystem. So when it comes to the Filevine API, we know it inside and out. In addition to our integration work, we have built a full-service Filevine implementation group, and that includes LeadDocket, Periscope, FVDA, and a data and document migration team. And then finally, we provide ongoing maintenance and support for these solutions. So when it comes to Filevine, we can do it all these days. Real simply, though, when it's all said and done, our philosophy comes down to a very simple concept: never let a client fail. And that's not to say that we're perfect. We don't encounter bumps in the road, but we will always deliver, and we make sure our client is taken care of and that they are successful. I think that wraps it up.
Excellent. All right, thanks, Chris. All right, let's jump in. Let me introduce our speakers today. I'll start with Hope McNeely out of the Garden State of New Jersey. With over a decade of experience driving technology solutions, Hope is a seasoned project manager, BA at Fuel in the Filevine world. She has a deep expertise around data migration, analytics, core Filevine buildouts, and LeadDocket and FVDA. Marcus Cook excels in managing Filevine reports with the utmost precision and efficiency. He's recognized as one of our Domo experts here at Fuel. He uses the platform to create valuable data visualizations and business intelligence solutions, and really focused on helping our clients get the most value out of their investments in Filevine. So with that, Hope and Marcus, please take it away.
Thank you. We're so happy to be here with all of you today. I think, like John said, I have over a decade of experience. A lot of that is dealing with data, whether it's migrating, analyzing, all those things. And I think what excites us most is that data is universal to everybody. So whether you joined us here because you already have Filevine, or you're considering Filevine, or maybe you caught my post on LinkedIn and you're here from a completely different industry, I think you can still get something out of today's call. Our goal is just to kind of go over 3 key things: capture it, report on it, analyze it. But we're also hoping to change your minds about how you see those reports and kind of how you see that data, and what uses you can get out of it. So along the way, we'll be kind of pointing out some key things that you should be adding to your reports. As Chris said, we're a longtime partner of Filevine, so this webinar will be Filevine focused, and kind of what kind of reports you can be creating in there, what kind of things you can be driving with those reports. But with that, the first thing is how you capture your data. So we always recommend, and this is kind of almost from like the project management and project planning that we offer here at Fuel, we always recommend identifying like, what is that data? What are you trying to bring on? So today we're going to focus on productivity. We're also going to focus on profitability. And so most of you can imagine that that would deal with your tasks. You would then have to be able to easily identify your users. You have to be able to easily identify, your settlements and kind of the money coming in. So that's where we're going to focus today. And then, like I said, we're going to point out some key information on, as long as you're capturing that information, or maybe we'll make you realize you need to add more fields to your template today. As long as you're capturing it, we're going to give you some great ways to report on it and analyze it as well. So I'm going to hand it over to Marcus. He is going to focus on how you build a report, and he's going to do that with kind of one of your key metrics on productivity, which is going to be task building.
All right, thank you, Hope. Let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started and jump right in. All right. All right, so if I could just get a quick hand raise, if everyone can see my screen, you should see the Filevine report builder here. Awesome, I'm seeing a bunch of hands go up, great. All right, so in this report builder section, like Hope said, I'm going to be focusing on our list of tasks report. Couple key things that you want to make sure are selected before you pick your report, because the organization and project type will change some of these reports available here. So just make sure that the proper organization and project type is selected here before you go in and start creating your report. So we have ours selected, so we're going to go ahead and click into list of tasks here. Now, all these columns are already here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and double click on these to put them back where they came from so I can kind of show you guys how they got over there in the first place and why we're selecting those fields in general. So again, you're going to make sure that same organization is selected down here at the bottom. And now, when we're searching up columns here, there's going to be a category selector that's already in the general. There are 2 ways to kind of get this information in here. You can start typing and usually it auto-populates. So for example, if we're looking for a task and who it's assigned to, if you start typing assigned, it will pull up everything that populates with that data point. So let's just go ahead and pick assigned to. Now the other one we can do is if we come into these category selectors and we go down here to tasks, this is specific to the criteria that we're trying to report on, right? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to click some of these important fields that we want to report on, and I'll kind of give a brief explanation why these are the fields we're picking. So completed by name, completed by username, assigned to username, assigned date, completed date, and target date. These are all important fields to go ahead and report on, and let me just explain why. Say you have staff and your staff just really isn't hitting the ball on certain things. They're not filling in certain fields when they are getting intakes or reporting on cases. This is a way to pull a report and see exactly which tasks are being completed, who is completing those tasks, who's assigning those tasks, what were those tasks, who were those tasks assigned to, what is the completion date on those tasks. And this is basically how you stay on top of your staff and making sure that they're entering all the proper data into the fields that they should be, making sure that tasks are being completed on time. That way you're not wasting time towards tasks, because what is time? Time is money, and we do not like wasting money or time. Another way to kind of hone in on that criteria is coming over here to the choose criteria page. Now, specific to the list of tasks, the criteria that I like to recommend, assigned within blank days before today. So say you want to see the tasks reported just on the previous week of business. So you would add this criteria right here, and we would just put assigned within 7 days before today. Now, what that's going to do when you run the report, it's going to show you all the tasks that were assigned, completed, etc., before 7 days today. Another criteria that I recommend using for this one is the task target date. So the target date, you can see there's a couple different ones. What this does is it will bring up any overdue tasks if it's past the target date, or if you want to see tasks that are specifically in 1 month period, this is actually a way to do that as well. So these are just a few of the criteria that I recommend for tasks. And again, it's for getting those holes and seeking those holes in your firm, seeing where you can save time and money. So once we get to the run report section and the save export section, there's a lot of different things that you can do within Filevine with these reports. And so for that, I'm going to pass it back to Hope, and she's kind of going to go through your utility within Filevine once you run those reports and you get to the save export portion. So Hope, I'm just going to pass it back to you. Give me 1 second here. All right.
All right, so same question, if somebody wouldn't mind raising their hand or two, just want to make sure you can see my screen, that you can see my screen clearly. Beautiful. I heard a couple pops there. All right, so I'm going to start a little bit at the beginning, but now that you've saw some quick and easy ways to add those fields, a little bit about criteria, I'm mostly going to hone in on some additional fields that we add for profitability. And then like Marcus said, we're going to focus on, you know, what can you then do with those reports? So we're going to go into how to analyze everything after that. So I have kind of some pre-built reports set up. Mine are from a list of projects perspective. So like Marcus pointed out, if you choose a specific template, it will then give you all of what Filevine calls their collection sections as well. So that could be things like your negotiations, your expenses, your med records, your mediation, anything you're collecting multiple times. But the way we typically build our templates to track settlements is with putting a few key fields right on your case summary, which is typically a 1-page item. So I'm just going to use a list of projects reports. So I already have it pretty ready here, so we don't have to go through kind of how to search and add. But I will highlight, of course, once you choose your template, then you could pull in some key information from your collection sections as well. So for this report, I have my project ID, my project number. I have my accident type, so that could be incident, case type, law type. It could be called various things in here. But what that's going to allow me to do is really help me on the analyze side. So I can pull this report and get everything as a company as a whole. But by adding this one key field, I now have a way of measuring things like per department or per law, and evaluate the performance of just that individual kind of branch. I always include name. Name is really good. That's the project name. And what's great about Filevine is it'll always give you a quick link to click. So if you do have to go make some changes or updates, especially like on that task report that Marcus was showing, you can quick make those updates and get right into that project. The next thing is referral source. Again, that's just one of those branches. So you can use a report like this to track from lead all the way to close. And that kind of ties in with the next one, which is phase. I always include phase. Phase is the biggest way to make sure that your reporting is accurate. You don't want to be reporting on profitability as far as settlements that came in and be including those projects that are in a phase of rejected or referred out. Now, of course, they are going to be considered when you're looking at the whole picture of this is how many leads that we came in. This is how many we were actually able to close and settle. But again, knowing where they came from and knowing what ended up happening to them, just again, 2 features we're hoping we kind of change your mind on always adding these to every single report that you're doing. That way you can see and divide up this data and analyze it in more than just a full what's going on in your company or firm. Phase date, last activity. These are just some key dates. So if something is, you can see if something's been in a phase for a very long time. You may need some additional reports on tasks or something else to see why that's happening. But they're just great dates to know if something has been sitting around, something you may need to follow up on, or you need to task someone to follow up on. And then at the bottom, I just always have those people. So if you pull this report and you see some missing data or things that need to be updated, or you want to know why something's sitting, why not have those people in this report? Why have to click into the report and figure out who it is? They don't hurt any metrics you're trying to get off this report by adding them in there. And then it just adds that ease of use and even another way of branching off and dividing up this information and knowing who owns this and who has to go make those changes. So I did mention that we set up our templates and case summary to kind of mention the projected as well as the actual settlement amount and date. A lot of you may be pulling this, and it looks like we actually have a question. And yes, so somebody's asking, if we don't have these on case summary, if we only have them in a negotiations or settlement section, could we build this same type of report? The answer is yes. You just wouldn't be using a list of projects report. You would want to choose that template, have those collection sections show up, and start your report from there. You do want to make sure that in that collection section that you have some good total fields. That'll just be a lot less calculation and a lot less fields that you have to pull into your report. So if you have like the settled amount and then any fees that have to come out of it, whether that's referring fees or something like that, and you have a total field, that would be the best way to get a report that doesn't have a lot of manipulation after the fact. But great question. So like I said, we have these summarized. We think it's worth even having a task flow on close that somebody takes the extra 2 seconds to just do that calculation and get it into the case summary. It truly does make your reports a lot faster and easier when we're talking about profitability. All right. So the last part, as Marcus said, is, then how do we get this out of here? What can we be doing with it? So of course you have the simple options of just exporting out this report. We do always recommend that you save it. If you save it, then you could just be running it every time you need it, whether it's to bring it into a meeting every week, every month, quarterly, annually, whatever the purpose is. There are some options you may or may not have depending on your settings in Filevine, but one of them is to export out to a CSV report and set up some specific settings. So there is an option to send these reports to, let's say, Amazon Web Services, so AWS. If you have or want to maintain that data outside of Filevine and just have it automatically go somewhere as well. But I am going to go ahead and just pull over this report as is. And I already exported it out to just kind of save us a little time here. But just by saving it and doing that Excel, it's just going to give you exactly what you asked it for. It's going to give you all the columns. It's going to give you all the data. And like I said, if you include project name, it kind of gives you that quick link to access that project where you might need to make some changes as well. All right, so then comes my favorite part. Like I said, I've been dealing with data for over a decade. So my favorite part is how do we analyze it? Kind of what do we do with this report? So I'm going to highlight kind of my top things. Marcus is going to highlight some of his favorite things. And then we're going to get into 2 ways that you can have this automatically happen for you. So I kind of mentioned a lot of them, but it's just the ability to throw in a quick filter or formula and get my total settlements. I could also set that by a particular date. And then by adding those fields I identified, we have those branches as well, right? So we can use this for per attorney, per paralegal, per case manager, and kind of automatically get that information out of here. So Marcus, what are some of your favorite things to kind of get out of this report, or some things that you've done with your clients to turn just these regular columns into something more useful?
Yeah, thanks, Hope. I think the one thing I've seen used the most, especially with Excel sheets, the ability to kind of create a workbook using different reports and then having all those reports in one section. So for example, on Hope's screen, you'll see down at the bottom the worksheet labeled webinar project projections. You could create a bunch of different sheets with a bunch of different reports and then have access to that data broken down with those formulas that Hope mentioned or the filters that Hope mentioned. That way you have access to that data and it's broken down and drilled down exactly how you want it to be without having to go through Filevine again. And you can save that workbook as an Excel or CSV, whatever you want to do. But taking it even further, to kind of customize and take your data even further, there is a connector called Periscope that is used to kind of connect the data from Filevine into a product called Domo. And what Domo does is it takes that data and it basically creates all these individual reports that can kind of be broken down and customized very, very thoroughly to make sure that you're getting the most out of your data and to kind of show you what that looks like. Hope, if you want to stop sharing, I can bring up Domo and just show a little view of it. All right, and again, if you all could just raise your hand for me and let me know that you can see the active inventory up here on the screen. Great, seeing a bunch of hands raised. So this is Domo. This is using demo data, but basically what occurs is we set up an exporter through an S3 bucket using an AWS account. And what we'll do is we'll export that data from Filevine into that S3 bucket, and it's basically scheduled to happen automatically. So these reports are going to be updating daily. It could happen 3 times a day if that's the frequency you would like it to. You kind of have customization over that. And then that data is going to come into Domo, and these are the different things that we're able to create and build with that data. This is just a small example of what we can do for you. For example, this is going to list all the phases here as the series, and it's going to show you active cases per phase. Something like this, if you have more than one office location, it will show you active case percentage per office location. And to take that even further, you can show settlements per office location, things of that nature. And then also we could do staff assignments, cases per attorney, cases per paralegal. We could do things like inventory value. So inventory value per attorney or per paralegal, per office location, for example. And that's just some case data that we could touch on. We can also go into different client demographics as far as language, marital status, things of that nature. And then we can also report on intake metrics. So for any of the firms that have lead docket, for example, yes, we can get lead docket reports into Domo as well. It's a different type of way doing it. It's not through an S3 bucket. It's actually through a scheduled email connector, but it is possible to do as well. So we can set up an intake dashboard for you using that lead docket info. So this is just a little bit of the possibility that we have if you are in the process or thinking about purchasing Domo or the Periscope implementation for your firm. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Hope to maybe finish up and touch on anything that I missed for you guys. So Hope, let me go ahead and pass it back to you.
Perfect. So I know we're trying to keep this call pretty brief for you all. We know you're pretty busy, but I am going to scroll back to Filevine. Of course, Domo is an amazing add-on. I think just by the fields that Marcus and I have identified today, you can see how extensive and how much you can get out of just 2 reports. Most of what he showed would be possible with just the 2 simple reports that we added today. Of course, some other things, other reports can be added in there as well. But we do want to kind of give you that value add of how you can be using just Filevine. And Marcus did mention, hey, go ahead and create that workbook. So let's real quick go through what that process is. And then we will double check the questions again and make sure that we didn't miss anything. All right. So of course I mentioned you could save, you could export that out in Excel. You could send it to an AWS bucket, but something that every single person who has Filevine should have access to is this export options page. So at the bottom, of course, you could export out your report. But what I find a lot of people don't realize is that there's actually a report template here. So you can go ahead and just click this Excel, and I'm going to kind of bring over exactly what this report would look like. And it basically just shows you the fields that you put into that report. And it's basically saying, okay, this is the template and this is how it's going to run every single time you give it to me. So what you can do is bring this template down and have your totals already done. I personally like doing that, and I'll bring over what I've done here. I like doing that on separate tabs. So I always like to keep the main report so I have all the information. And then I like creating that workbook that Marcus mentioned, and then just go ahead and decide what do I want to see at hand. If I have to run this report and run into a meeting, how can I make this Excel give me the answers without having to manually do it every time? So of course you need to know a little bit of Excel formulas here, or we at Fuel, we do have maintenance and support packages. We're always willing to talk to you and help get some of these next level report items set up for you. But here I've just used some simple count ifs. I've also done per case type and done some totals here. So what that does every single time I run this now from Filevine itself, I have this template in here. So if I go ahead and say export out this particular report, it's going to give me the page that I have the report, and then all these items are automatically going to be done for me. So that is something that just by having Filevine Core, you have complete access to, and the ability to export that template, the ability to have some of these numbers and these metrics like right at your hands. I know Marcus definitely hit on this with some task reports and things, but I, again, like keeping this main report because I can kind of see where the gaps are too. So that will then let me know when I get to per referral source or per case type, like how accurate are these numbers? Because there might be some cleanup that I have to do here. I think we have one other question right now, so I'm gonna skip to that. And that was just, can you send this automatically? So you could, there's this auto report setting, and you basically can set the frequency. And then you, as the person accessing this report, it would send directly to your user email. So we do, as Marcus said, have a webinar 2 planned. We hope that you guys will come out. We want to show you how you can push this data even further. Marcus, as well as a Filevine rep, will be kind of taking us through how do you take this one report and turn it into this full-blown dashboard that you, as well as your paralegals, case managers, can all be using at a glance every day. And with that, I am going to pass this back off to John here. We hope you found this informative, and we hope to see you on our next webinar as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Hope. Yep. And with that, because we are running just a couple minutes over, we will wrap up quickly. We'd love to hear about your specific goals and challenges. Feel free to reach out. My contact information is on the bottom right there, and I'm happy to I am not the expert on your questions, but I will make sure that we get in touch with the right people and help you any way we can. As Hope said, this is the beginning of what we hope to be as a process of learning opportunities and getting to know you, and thanks for taking some time to get to know us. So we'll be sending out information on the Periscope webinar. Should be coming up in the next few weeks, we think. Trying to lock in on dates. And again, thank you for your time. Thanks for joining us, and feel free to reach out with any questions or any way that we can help you. Thank you.